Vastatanam, particularly situated. Anumriya, the destination. Dasuse, one who delivers. Translation. Purport was Angry Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Padaki. I again offer my respectful obeisances unto the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distresses and the destroyer of the further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. For the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destinations. Translation, please repeat. I again offer my respectful obeisances unto the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distresses and the destroyer of further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. For the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destinations. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna is the complete form of all existence, both material and spiritual. Akila means complete, or that which is not kila, inferior. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, there are two kinds of nature, prakriti, namely the material nature and the spiritual nature, or the external and internal potencies of the Lord. The material nature is called apara, or inferior, and the spiritual nature is called superior, or transcendental. Therefore, the form of the Lord is not of the inferior material nature. He is complete transcendence, and he is morti, or having transcendental form. The less intelligent men who are unaware of his transcendental form describe him as impersonal Brahman. But Brahman is simply the rays of his transcendental body, Yasha Prabha. The devotees who are aware of his transcendental form render him service. Therefore the Lord also reciprocates by his causeless mercy and thus delivers his devotees from all distresses. The pious men who follow the rulings of the Vedas are also dear to him, and therefore the pious men of this world are also protected by him. The impious and the non-devotees are against the principles of the Vedas, and so such persons are always hampered from making advancements in their nefarious activities. Some of them who are especially favoured by the Lord are killed by him personally, as in the cases of Ravan, Hiranyakasipu and Kamsa. And thus such demons get salvation and are thereby checked from further progress in their demoniac activities, just like a kind father, either in his favour upon the devotees or his punishment of the demons. He is ever kind to everyone because he is the complete existence for all individual existence. The Paramahamsa stage of existence is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual values. According to Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord is factually understood by the Paramahamsas only. As there is gradual realization of the transcendence from impersonal Brahman to localized Paramatma to the personality of Godhead, Purushottam, Lord Krishna, similarly there is gradual promotion of one's situation in the spiritual life of sannyas. Kutichaka, Bahudak, Paravajikacharya and Paramahamsa are gradual progressive stages in the renounced order of life, sannyas. And Queen Kunti Devi, the mother of the Pandavas, has spoken about them in her prayers for Lord Krishna, Canto 1, Chapter 8. The Paramahamsas are generally found among both the impersonalists and the devotees, but according to Srimad Bhagavatam, as clearly stated by Kunti Devi, pure Bhakti Yoga is understood by the Paramahamsas, and Kunti Devi has especially mentioned that the Lord descends, Patranaya Saranam. especially to award Bhakti Yoga to the Paramahamsas. So ultimately, the Paramahamsas, in the true sense of the term, are unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has directly accepted that the highest destination is Bhakti Yoga, by which one accepts the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Those who accept the path of Bhakti Yoga are the factual Paramahamsas. Since the Lord is very kind to everyone, the impersonalists who accept bhakti as the means of merging in the existence of the Lord in his impersonal Brahmajyoti are also awarded their desired destination. He has assured everyone in Bhagavad Gita 4.11, Yeyata mam prapajante. According to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti, there are two classes of Paramahamsas, namely the Brahmanandis, the impersonalists, and the Premanandis, devotees, and both are awarded their desired destinations. Although the Premanandis are more fortunate than the Brahmanandis, but both the Brahmanandis and Premanandis are transcendentalists, and they have nothing to do with the inferior material nature, full of the existential miseries of life. So this chapter, Process of Creation, is interesting to note that I think it was verse number 6. The Maharaj Parikshit, of course this has been narrated by Sutta Goswami, this conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami. And verse number 6, Parikshit Maharaj, he asks Sukadev Goswami that he wants to know how the personality Godhead by his personal energies creates these phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great devotees. So, of course, this chapter entitled The Process Creation. So, Maharaj Parikshit, becoming more and more enlivened, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and he inquires, how does the Lord enter in, and how does the whole process of creation is carried out by the Supreme Lord. And actually the rest of the chapter, it's not that Sukadev Goswami immediately starts talking about Krishna and creation and so many things. What he does for the rest of this chapter, and it's verses 30, 20, 25 verses. What he does, he offers prayers to Krishna to give him the ability to be able to answer this question. So I thought that's quite significant, that he doesn't just, he's not thinking, Maharaj Parikshit asking me, and I know so many things, and I'm going to tell Maharaj Parikshit. At first he qualifies himself in a sense that he prays to Krishna, please give me the ability and the knowledge to be able to answer this question properly. So this just shows the humility of Sukadev Goswami. Even though he's the most qualified speaker, he's also the most humble, that he first prays for the qualification from Krishna. So those familiar with Bhagavad Gita, this verse is very similar to the verse in Gita 4.7 and 4.8 that whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious principles, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise in religion, at that time I descend myself to deliver the pious and non-miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. So, based on that verse and today's verse, 3 prominent points come out from the translation. Number one, that Krishna is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distresses. Of course, a question could be asked that whilst, yes, definitely the primary reason Krishna does appear millennium after millennium, is to deliver the devotees, the pious, and as Prabhupada says, particularly the Paramahamsas. You can bring up the example that Vasudeva and Devaki, they perform so much austerity to have Krishna as their son. And he reciprocated that desire, but as a result, because of the prophecy that Kamsa heard that the 8th child of his daughter was going to kill him, he put Vasudeva and Devaki in prison, awaiting the birth of the 8th child so that he could kill him. So how many years did Devaki and Vasudeva spend in jail? Does anyone know?
11.
Sorry? 11. As far as I understand, it was 17 years. Because it was the eight children being born, and then 12 years or so that Krishna spent in Vrindavan before he came to the wrestling arena to kill Kamsa. So I've heard 17 years. So if Krishna's goal is to come to liberate the devotees from all distresses, why does he allow his own parents to stay in jail for 17 years? So it's a good question to ponder. Two points come to mind why he does that. One is that Vasudeva and Devaki, for one reason or other, they weren't able to witness Krishna's childhood pastimes. Even though Vasudeva and Devaki and Jasoda and Nanda, they're both in the same sort of parental rus with Krishna, but it's understood that Nanda and Jasoda were more elevated in the sense that their mood was more intimate and intense, so they were able to witness Krishna's childhood pastimes, which is considered the sweetest of his pastimes. Whereas Vasudeva and Devaki, even though they were the original parents of Krishna, they weren't able to witness his pastimes. So, of course, you could say it's a bit, what's the word? It's a bit, okay, so Krishna is thinking, my parents can't see my pastimes, therefore I'm going to arrange for them to be in jail. So they can't witness. So anyway, but that's the way the arrangement was made. But it's also to increase the mood of separation, that the whole time they weren't, Vasudeva and Devaki, in jail thinking that, how can Krishna be so cruel that he's keeping us, he allowed us to stay in jail. Somehow or other they're thinking, like lamenting like that. But it was a mood of separation. They're constantly thinking about Krishna. Is Krishna safe? Has he been looked after? Etc., etc. So there's 2 points that come to mind anyway. That because we know Krishna could have had them released from jail at any point, but that was the how the pastime revealed itself. And we know when Krishna did come to the wrestling arena, him and Balaram, they fought the wrestlers, and then they pulled Kamsa down, and one good punch and Kamsa was finished. And at that point, Vasudeva and Devaki were released from jail. So Krishna could have done that at any point, but still to bring out that mood of separation, that mood of love and separation, sort of Krishna, that whole pastime was arranged in that way. And in the same way, I guess we can consider that because we become devotees, we think that everything is going to be perfect and go exactly our way. We can't expect that. And we do hear about examples where particularly newer devotees that come to Krishna consciousness and something sort of bad, unexpected happens in their life, and they lose faith. or I'm trying to be a devotee. How could Krishna allow this to happen? And they they lose faith and they leave devotional service. So so we shouldn't be thinking that everything's going to be perfect. I mean, Prabhupada, it's not that everything went exactly his way. We know the example of Mr. Nair in Mumbai, where he's trying to buy the land for the temple, and that Mr. Nair created so many obstacles in so many different ways to check his purchasing the land and try to cheat him out of his money, etc. But despite that, after all those different problems, when Prabhupada eventually got that land, his statement was, a devotee never has any problems. So that's a transcendental way. You just see how Krishna is involved somehow or other. And our faith can remain strong, that even though it's not going our way, things, are not going to plan. But if we see that Krishna has his hand in everything, then our faith will remain there. There's the saying that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So we shouldn't be thinking everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to go our way. But at the same time, Krishna is in the heart and he's witnessing how are we reacting to these situations. He tells the gopis, now the gopis are so distraught that Krishna disappeared from them in the Ras Leela. But he reveals that I'm actually in your heart and I'm witnessing how you're feeling my separation, like that. So we should always thinking that Krishna is in our heart and he's witnessing. Are we cursing or condemning Krishna? Or are we being thankful to him for giving us an opportunity to surrender even more to him? So according to our sort of level of, spiritual realization, we'll be thinking in different ways, but should always remember that Krishna is always with us. And, he's always protecting us. As the verse mentions, that he's always liberated the pious devotees from all distresses. So, but he's got a certain way to do that. It's going to teach us a particular lesson that's just suitable for our own spiritual advancement. So he's liberated the pious devotees from all distresses. And the second point from this verse, that he's the destroyer of the further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. I always find amusing, Prabhupada says non-devotee demons. We never heard of devotee demons. Or you say evil demon, it's like a demon is always going to be evil and non-devotee. But anyway, it's a word that Prabhupada puts in there, that the non-devotee demons. So in Bhagavad Gita 19 and 20, chapter 16, verses 19 and 20, we hear that those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So that sounds pretty heavy, pretty cruel. Why would somebody do that? But Prabhupada addresses that point, that just like a kind father, either in his favour upon the devotees or his punishment of the demons, he is ever kind to everyone because he is the complete existence of all individual existence. So, if somebody is causing so many problems and so many offences to the devotees and just creating so much bad karma for themselves and others, they have to be protected for themselves. It's like sometimes you hear about somebody who's gone completely crazy and they put them in those, straitjacket and put them in a padded cell, just until they can calm down a little bit. It's not trying to be cruel or torture them, they're just protecting them from themselves like that, so they aren't attack somebody or smash their head against the wall or whatever. It's just to protect themselves. So Krishna, through the law of karma, he's doing the same thing. That if somebody's just getting so crazy, he puts them down in lower species of life just to protect themselves from themselves and protect them from other people. It's like a jail in itself. It's meant for rehabilitation, but it's also to protect society from these people continually performing, criminal activities. So in the same way, Krishna does that himself, that just to protect these living entities. And for those non-devotee demons who are even more favoured by Krishna, Krishna personally kills them, and as a result they get liberation, different types of liberation. So, of course, persons who don't have knowledge of devotional service, they find this very difficult to grasp, and they get very angry that if there's a God, how can he do these sort of things? That they can't understand the idea that how can you say God is always very kind, but why does he allow these things to go on? But with higher knowledge, we can understand that Krishna is not envious, he's not cruel, he doesn't want people to suffer. But at the same time, like Prabhupada says, some people choose to live in darkness. That's their choice, that's their free will. They choose to live in darkness, and because Krishna doesn't interfere with their free will, at a certain point, through the law of karma, Krishna takes some action just to prevent them from creating more and more problems for themselves and others. So it's like a loving child, a loving father. The child is creating so much chaos in the house, so he puts them he said, go to your room and close the door until you calm down, or put them on sit them in the naughty corner or whatever, like that. And I know from what like with my own daughter when she was small, but same as any child, the last thing they want is to be isolated. If they're really going really crazy, you isolate them, they just hate that. And but after a while they calm down, and then they're hopefully a little bit more repentant, like that. So it's the same principle, exactly the same principle, that we shouldn't see Krishna as being cruel or envious. And these ideas that some religious traditions that if you don't accept God, you go to hell forever. So forever is a long time. If if apparently in this life you're worshipping the so-called wrong God, and the followers of that particular tradition saying, you go to hell forever. So for one lifetime you do, there's some philosophical mistake, and you're punished forever in hell. It's like just quoting Ridananda Maharaj speaking on this point. He says, this is the mentality of a psychopath. There's somebody who likes somebody to suffer forever, basically. So indirectly they're saying that God is a psychopath. So of course he's not, but that's the presentation they're trying to give. And somebody who's supporting that idea is also that same psychopathic idea that yes, he should suffer forever. So if, of course, any loving parent, if they know that their child is suffering in so many ways, they would want to help them. Whatever they can do, they would want to help them. But if, according to some people, that God doesn't help them, he just wants to suffer them forever, you could respond that why should we worship such a God who is morally inferior to a human? So this is one way to answer such an idea. That, of course, another point is that the hellish realm is still within the material universe. Material universe is temporary. Therefore, where is the question of suffering eternally in a place that's temporary? I mean, it's just, there's no logic there. So, of course, nobody does suffer eternally, but sometimes somebody just has to be chastised in different ways, put down into lower species or somehow or other, just to rectify themselves. But Krishna, he doesn't do it out of malice or envy, he does it out of love. You know, as we understand that Shishupal, he created spoke so many offences against Krishna, and eventually Krishna, with the Sudarshan Chakra, he killed him in the assembly, and it was seen that the spark of life from Shishupal entered into Krishna's body. But Krishna, he didn't have some sort of, cruel or it was an expression of love that my devotee is coming back to me, like that. So a person in proper knowledge will understand whatever Krishna does, he does out of love. He doesn't do out of malice in any way. And the third point from this purport is translation. This verse is, for the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destination. So according to what one is desiring, Krishna fulfills that desire. So it's sort of interesting to hear that, Prabhupada is saying the Paramahamsas are also found within the impersonalist school. And but it's interesting to note as well that since the Lord is very kind to everyone, the impersonalists who accept bhakti as the means of merging in the existence of the Lord in his impersonal Brahma Jyoti are also awarded their desired destination. So even for the karmis, the gyanis, the yogis, they'll achieve their desired result as long as still there's some bhakti involved. Without bhakti, nothing can be achieved. If one is approaching Krishna and there's no bhakti there, it's very unlikely that one's going to achieve any benefit. So even they may not be bhakti yogis, but some sort of devotion has to be there for them to achieve their desired result. And there has to be an understanding, there's a difference between impersonalists and Mayavadis. Mayavadis are considered very offensive. Impersonalists, it is a bona fide path to achieve transcendence. So sometimes Prabhupada condemns the impersonalists, but he's sort of more referring to the Mayavadis. But there is a difference there. And we hear from Bhagavatam 1-11 that learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And from the purport, Prabhupada mentions those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. So those who are wanting to merge in the Brahma Jyoti, the Brahma Jyoti is a part of Krishna's existence. It's the all-pervading energy coming from Krishna, just like the sunlight is coming from the sun globe. So it's in a sense a bona fide path. From a Vaishnava point of view, it's not the recommended path, but for those who are drawn or attracted to that particular path, it's not condemned in the same way that Mayavadis are condemned, that they're thinking everything is illusion, including Krishna. So, and Prabhupada does, quoting Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, that there are two classes of Paramahamsas, namely the Brahmanandis, the impersonalists, and the Premanandis, the devotees, and both are awarded the desired destinations. So as I said, for the Vaishnavas, we're not drawn to the impersonalist side. We're trying to, we're in the school of the Premanandis. We're trying to feel that prema. And but even for both, those who achieve the topmost platform of Paramahamsa, they are awarding their destinations. in the sannyas order, that Kudicaka stage, that if he takes sannyas, and in the beginning he can stay outside his village in a cottage, and his family or sort of assistants, they provide all these necessities such as food, etc., or supplied from home. And as they advance a little bit more in the sannyas order, next stage is Bahudak, that when he no longer accepts anything from home, instead he collects his necessities, especially his food, to beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. He should collect a little bit from every house, from many places. Sometimes it's said 3 places. If you don't get anything after 3 places, it means you're fasting. So that's called madhukari. Madhukari is like a bee going flower to flower and just getting a little bit. So that's the Bahudak stage. And it means they're giving up dependence on their family and their village, and they're just learning to depend on Krishna more and more. Next stage above that, Parvajikacharya, that he travels over the world to preach the glories of Vasudeva. And then the topmost Paramahamsa is he finishes his preaching work and sits down in one place strictly for the sake of advancing the spiritual life. So see that, in the pranam prayers we offer to Prabhupada, we call Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya, because he was preaching the glories of Vasudeva right to his very last breath. We've all seen that footage, that just before he leaves his body, he's still translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and Prabhupada had the desire, he wants to die in the battlefield, in the battlefield of preaching. So his desire was fulfilled like that. So, we have the what's sometimes called the yoga ladder, that's within the Vedas. There's different guidelines given to us for advancement according to our current status of realization and sort of spiritual advancement. The karma kandis and the karma yogis and the gnana yogis, etc. And then at the top, bhakti yogi. So all these classes are considered transcendentalists, and Prabhupada is saying that he says the pious men who follow the rulings of the Vedas are also dear to him, and therefore the pious men of this world are also protected by him. So he's referring to this, everybody in the yoga ladder, whatever position you're in, you're considered pious because you're trying to transcend your position from this current state to a higher level of understanding, higher level of purification, realization. So, of course, Prabhupada refers to these people in different ways. In one class he referred to the karmis as the 3rd class pious men, and then the gyanis as the 2nd class pious men, and then the yogis, they're the 1st class pious men. Of course, above that is the bhakti yogis. But at the same time, in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear the word Kaitavadharma, that the Srimad Bhagavatam kicks out this idea that we're practicing spiritual life for fruitive desire or for speculative knowledge like that. And so, in a sense, Prabhupada is being very compassionate to these, because in another class I heard, it was just the other day, from the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada refers to these 3 classes. He said, karmis, this is the 3rd class rascal. Gnani, he's the 2nd class rascal. And the yogis, these are the 1st class rascals, like that. So Prabhupada has a sense of humour like that. That they should just give up this attachment to fruitive desire and speculative knowledge and just come to the topmost platform, Bhakti Yoga. And but as we said, to achieve any position or any advancement, some sort of bhakti, some devotion has to be there to achieve the desired result. And if one is fortunate to come to the topmost level, Paramahamsa, through the via medium Bhakti Yoga, then all your desires and your desired destination is going to be fulfilled. And for the topmost Bhakti Yogis, that's of course the topmost planet in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. So that's our ultimate goal that Prabhupada has given us based on Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're just practicing every day. Every day is we're practicing our Bhakti Yoga sadhana, and ultimately we should have firm faith that ultimately we'll achieve that highest goal. So I'll end here. Thank you very much. If there's any questions or comments at all. Yes, Robert.
Thank you for the class. Just a reflection on you were speaking about there's no perfect situation in the world. And this is very true. As a devotee, I was just thinking that we can, however, because not a blade of grass can keep out the will of the Lord, and this is such a wonderful motto to have in our lives. So even though there are situations that are we perceive as imperfect, they are actually, we can actually look at them as perfect because Krishna's arranged these situations for his devotee so that we can become closer to him, we can establish our relationship with him through surrender, because through suffering and imperfection we become a little more surrendered perhaps. So I was just reflecting on that. It's interesting how we can go, oh, this is imperfect, this is full of suffering, but actually we can switch it to, actually this is perfect because Krishna's arranged this for us. So the imperfect becomes perfect. There's perfection and imperfection. I was just reflecting on that.
Sure.
It's nice to have that. Thank you for that. And also Vishnu Prabhupada called the non-devotee demons. I guess there are some demons that are devotees, maybe. Like, you're on a Krishna and you're devotee before he came in that pastime. And so, and sometimes, I was just thinking maybe that was something to do with that there are devotee demons that are actually devotees, and then there are demons that are just demons.
You could see it that way also. Of course, the topmost Paramahamsa doesn't see devotee and demon. They just say everybody's serving Krishna. So it depends on your on your understanding. That's why the Uttama Adhikari comes down to the Madhyama Adhikari to preach, because on the topmost they just say everyone's a devotee. So that's a good point. Any other? Yes, Christian Rupa Madhava.
There's also purport, I'm pretty sure it's in Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada describes in the purport that actually there are demons in ISKCON. Prabhupada says in ISKCON, wearing tilak.
That might be there.
Not imposters, obviously, but it's not that automatically because someone's wearing a goatee or sari and tilak, that it's not something demonic activities.
Or in the Bible, isn't it said, beware of strangers bearing gifts or something? There's some verse like that. So, and born-again Christians have told me that a few times, that they're criticising my path, and they say, beware of strangers bearing gifts when I'm bringing them books, Because I have heard that Amila Mataji, she quoted one verse saying that even in the heavenly planets there is a planet specifically for pious atheists. So you may not believe in God, but there's some piety there. So that's the planet you're awarded. So there's a place for everybody. Yes,
when you're mentioning, I was just thinking when you're mentioning these entities that are condemned to that simple activity, I once saw a part of a documentary where they were in the South Pole, I guess, somewhere, and they drilled something like 30, 40 metres into the ice, into the black water underneath, and dropped the camera down and put some lights on, and there's the most horrible looking envious creatures you could imagine their faces of Australia, and you can see the nature of the living entity and why they didn't put the situation again. It's like a prison within a prison to be in dark water, freezing dark water, 40 metres under the ice. It's pretty can't even think.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't want to get there? You cool down there.
But anyway, I guess the point I'm making is that we shouldn't think that there's eternal condemnation. Some other traditions, they present that's you there forever. You pay off your karma and then you know. But definitely there's according 8,400,000 different species, so that refers to the mentality. There's 8,400,000 different types of consciousness. And so for each type of consciousness, there's a body that's just suitable. So somebody who's got a particular type of consciousness is just suitable for a grotesque body in freezing cold water in the dark. Somehow or other they conjure that consciousness up, they've got a body ready for them. So, yeah.
I was talking with some, I can't remember if they were Seventh-day Adventists or anyway, some Christians. And I was saying, well, my God doesn't do guilt. His name's Krishna, and he's the most beautiful. So all you have to do is surrender and serve him and have a living relationship with him. There's no guilt involved. It's a very different concept.
Yeah.
Like that. He's actually, look at him. How can there be any guilt? Just as long as we're doing what he wants us to do, which is surrender to him and serve him lovingly.
Yes, Sastra.
Thank you for the message. Just something came to my mind. Sometimes the bodies, due to emotional state of realizations, chemical exits, so they may manifest, they may have symptoms. So onlooker who observes it, they may be dark demons and temporarily manifesting those qualities. Of course, this is perplexing because it is a devotee, but due to offensive to higher Vaishnavas, especially master devotees, but especially the spiritual master, temporarily Krishna allows him to drop into that lower modes, Rajasic and Hamsas. And one of the good examples is Ramachandra Puri, who not only did his husband of Puri, his spiritual master, calling him Brahmavadi or whatever, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And Prabhupada gives a nice report in the following verses that there are Kalichalas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, who may dress and claim to be devotees, wear Kuntimala and Vaishnava dress and preach Bhaktivedanta, but actually in their actions, in their qualities, manifesting their qualities. Therefore, to the time that they're not actually devotees, although they are part of devotion. So it's interesting who is actually a demon or a devotee has to be determined through the eyes of the Shastra and also the qualities.
That's an important point. That, according to one's realization, proper discrimination is there to see. Of course, nectar devotion does say that if one chants Krishna once, you can offer him respects in their mind regardless who they are. Because ultimately everybody is a pure spirit soul, but at least externally for that time, they may not be manifesting that purity. So one needs proper discrimination too. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.